I'll record this computer. There we go. So good afternoon and welcome everybody to Evolutionary Conversations 3. My name is Sanjay Bana. I'm co-hosting these conversations with a fellow friend of mine all the way from Lithuania, Irma Lukosevicien. Before we kickstart, I'd just like Irma to say hello quickly. Irma.
Hello, everybody. Very, very nice to have you all here.
Great stuff. So colleagues, and for those of you that are joining us today as part of the audience, welcome. Thank you for being part and parcel of our conversation. I'm going to literally just kickstart by telling you a little bit more about Evolutionary Conversations, why we're having these conversations and what the actual goal behind these is. Then I will start off with an introduction to two of our panelists. I'll then hand over to Irma, who will introduce our third panelist, and we'll move straight into conversation from that point going forward. In terms of questions, if you want to pose questions, kindly pose them into the chat. We'll pick up your conversations from the chat and relay them to the panelists. And it's literally going to be free, open conversation, apart from the setting the scene, which Irma will do to spark off the conversation. Just to let everybody know, none of our panelists have been briefed on anything that we're going to chat about today. They've been invited because they're all very, very interesting people, have got very, very unique senses of thinking and perceiving the world, and they're thought leaders in their own respective areas. So let me kick off nonetheless by going straight into a quick set of slides. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Perfect.
Great. So colleagues, like I said, welcome to Evolutionary Conversation. And by the way, just to let you know, on our call today, we've got people from across the globe. So I'm in Johannesburg, South Africa. Robyn's from Johannesburg, South Africa, and we've got a few other colleagues also from Johannesburg. We've got Irma and Justina, who are from the Baltics or Lithuania, very north in Europe. My geography is correct. We've then got Chenny, who's all the way from the Philippines, which is literally, on the east, so other part of the world. And then we've got guests like Meryl, who's from the US. So we've literally got 8 a.m., 8 p.m., and some of us stuck in between. And then we've got Sanjay Matadine as well, who's all the way from Mauritius. So a nice little basket of people and grouping of people from around the world. Evolutionary Conversations are conversations that Irma and I set up literally to move us collectively forward. The one thing we realized was that the more you know, the less we actually realize we know. And we thought, okay, let's set up conversations where the focus of these conversations is to shift people and organizations into new or alternate ways of thinking, of being, and of doing. And we do this by creating spaces for thought leadership, like our hosts today, at least our panelists today, to come together, to chat, opportunities for ideas and perspectives to collide for the betterment of all. And literally, that's the focus of these conversations. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you get lots of value out of them. I'm going to begin by just introducing two of our guests. I'm going to start off with my neighbor, Robyn. Robyn and I know each other for probably the last 3 or 4 years. She is a very, very interesting and unique person. If you go and read up on her on LinkedIn, you'll find that she says she's a collaborative convener seeking to understand how best the conditions for effective collaboration can be fostered through collaboration. Yeah. So, she's also the founder of and co-director, I think, of African Voices and also Kaleidoscope. I can't remember the full name, but I know it's Kaleidoscope. Robyn, please help me. But I will, sorry. Robyn will tell you a little bit more about the organization, but safe to say Robyn's a thought leader in her own space. She's done some phenomenal work in Africa and abroad, literally bringing people together to have some really critical conversations that also move organizations forward from a social perspective, really doing some amazing work in the education sector. Then we've got Chenny Galano. Chenny is all the way from the Philippines. She is the president of the Rizal Academy for Innovation and Leadership. I had the pleasure of working with Chenny and her entire team at Trail just over 2 years ago in terms of evolving an initiative. They do some phenomenal work in the Philippines, working with the leadership in the Philippines to literally not only move businesses forward, but also country and the government forward. And she's done some really interesting work now recently with ULAB. And I think that's something that Robyn, Chenny, and Justina that you'll meet shortly have in common. So what I'd like to do is just quickly ask Robyn to say hello in a minute, and Chenny, hello for a minute. Robyn, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Sanjay, and thank you so much for inviting me into this beautiful collective of people. It's a delight to meet you all. Yeah, so wonderful to be able to talk about what it is that helps us transmute. So beyond the oftentimes quite commonplace concept of transformation, I think there is something about to really shift the way we think we are, to step into ourselves fully is progressive. And it takes a transmutative process, and these kinds of conversation, dialogic work is so powerful in inviting us in, helping us to experiment a little bit, and helping us to grow into the truest forms of ourselves. So really, really wonderful to be here. And I'll hand over to you, Chenny, and then we'll hear from Justina, which will be wonderful too.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Robyn. And it's really such a wonderful feeling to be with like-minded individuals. And even if we have not really discussed anything yet, I can already feel the energy coming from the kind of leaders that we have here in this conversation. And I agree with what Robyn said, that maybe from the side, from my side of the globe, which is the eastern side of the world, my experience of being exposed to different concepts and transformational work with the likes of Sinjay, and also the work that we have with Presencing Institute and MIT, and we want to bring it here to the Philippines because we want to be able to elevate that kind of consciousness that we have here as leaders of our country. And with the disruption that's happening all over, I feel like even before we become leaders, we want to also become humans. And that's, I think, what we need to do right now, because we are being presented with so many problems and disruptions happening all over. And we need to develop that human side of us. We need to become more human and build those relationships, not just where I am, not just where you are, but wherever we are. I mean, the whole of humanity in the whole world. So yeah, thank you very much for having me today.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much,
Over
Robyn
to you, Justina.
Chenny.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to ask Irma to introduce Justina. So Irma, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, ladies. I think you already, started the conversation. But first of all, let me introduce a very good friend of mine, Justina, who is innovation leadership expert. She's the founder of the global innovation agency called Future Leadership, which is helping companies to create innovation strategies, therefore innovating products and services. Justina herself focuses on innovation strategy and transformation, innovation management by building systems and processes, and of course, leadership. She's also the founder of Health Tech Accelerator, the first this kind of program in Lithuania. She is a board member at the National Innovation Agency in Lithuania. She's also the founder of amazing program which is called Alter State. It's an international platform which brings together women from around the world to learn and collaborate with each other. And the last but not the least, the thing which you won't find on LinkedIn, Justina is a mother of triplets. And with all the activities she's involved, I just really can call her a superwoman. Justina, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everyone. Irma, after such an introduction, I don't know what to say next, but hello, everyone. It's so good to be here. I really agree with what other panelists already said, that I think that transformation starts from ourselves, and with everything what we do, I think that we will have here very interesting conversation, because I think we could share a lot of experiences and like case studies, how we ourselves, managed to transform our lives from, being mom and entrepreneur, from creating all these different activities which we do. So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Justina. Let me start. In today's rapidly changing and disruptive business environment, we all agree that maintaining the status quo is no longer enough to remain competitive. And our mistaken perception of the world is becoming more and more evident. We are faced with illusions of strength, control, predictability, knowledge, power. Our world has become brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible. And in this BANI world, we need a whole new way of thinking, being, and doing in order to thrive personally and professionally. And with this, I'd like to open the discussion up to our panelists. Are we as leaders truly aware of BANI? And what must we do to truly understand the nature of our current world, to navigate it better? Robyn, Justina, please.
Yeah, maybe I
Wonderful.
can start. Yeah,
Carry on, Justina.
It's very, very interesting question. It's very interesting statement. I think that we as a leaders, we are aware of this constantly changing environment. But another thing, I believe that we don't know exactly what to do, because everything is changing constantly. Another day I had a conversation with youth panel, and they actually said to me very interesting thing, which stayed in my mind for a couple of days. We said that, the major difference between generation is that basically they, as a younger generation, they receive new tools how to operate each and every year. We, as a little bit, myself, as a little bit older generation, we used to receive such things like a couple of times per hour life or per hour experience. And I totally agree with them, because now everything is changing. From the way we communicate to the way we work, from the way we implement new innovations, or I don't know, whatever it is. And basically we are there, but we don't know exactly how to operate. And I think we can discuss about it quite interestingly, because in each region, maybe we have different a little bit understanding how to do it. For instance, even region or even profession, for instance, I work a lot with medical institutions, and we know that all these artificial intelligence things are coming, but we haven't started to learn new skills. 2 days ago, I had a conversation with nurses. We know that all these technologies are coming, but we haven't prepared themselves for all these changes. I talk with teachers. They know that, curriculum should change, that the teaching methods should change, but we just know it, but no actions we are taking. So I think that here is the major problem, and here is the main challenge, that it's not enough just to know that the world is constantly changing. We need to take action. And I believe that here we could discuss a little bit how different regions, how different professions are adapting to it. So I will stop here and allow others to jump in.
Thank you. May I jump in, Chenny?
Sure.
Thank you. So Irma, I'm actually so delighted that you brought that particular acronym up. It's something we've been working with in our Africa Voices dialogue work for some time, and hopefully we'll be able to share something a little bit more detailed soon. But, I think there are two things. So the one is the premise about if we remain the same in our rapidly emergent, changing world, we'll no longer maintain the competitive advantage. And I think therein lies a fundamental need to get beneath the rationale behind change and to get beneath what is it that needs to change. And I think, you know, the ongoing driver towards competitive advantage, towards the maintenance of the paradigm that we are busy emerging from, because I don't believe it's any longer a case of we know we need to in the future emerge from it. I think we are right in the midst of the transformation moment. And the work now is not so much to grapple with and try and understand what's happening around us at this level. It's to go very much deeper and really look at the underlying paradigms that we are building ourselves, our mental models from, and understand what is needed for this time now. Not what is needed that is new, but what return to ourselves needs to be undertaken. And the words that Chenny used, you know, how do we step into a humanizing, rehumanizing paradigm and remember what we have forgotten and build on what we have forgotten and return to a thing that so few of us experience in our lives. It is tragic. So few of us experience so irregularly the spaces into which we feel ourselves being welcomed and accepted as humans, being able to connect and bond. It is the most bizarre phenomenon. A lot of the work that I do is around how do we work effectively together? Not should we, not technically how do we do it, not what is the projects that we need to, but how do we do this? How do we practice being together in such a way that ignites our spontaneous light and our ability to connect with each other as humans? And in our Africa Voices dialogue work, as well as some other work that I'm engaged with in the South African landscape, what is becoming clearer and clearer is that the transmutation of the BANI framework is very simple. It is both the simplest thing to do and yet the hardest thing to do, because it is simple, because it is a return to our essential selves. It is hard because the dismantling of our armor that's required and the level of vulnerability that it takes to step into that, we snap back into that all the time. And so practicing how to be human with one another, how to build our relationality, how to escape our productivist mindset for long enough to connect, to build our levels of trust and belonging. It's a challenge. I would love to share a little slide later, but I think I'm going to pause for the moment. Just a little slide with regards to this BANI concept. And I'm going to hand it back to you, Chenny.
Thank you so much, Robyn. And I think maybe what's happening also, you touched on, well, in my head, I kind of have this image of, it's probably because of how we were trained or how we were, you know, we were schooled when we were growing up, and those are the mental models that we grew up with. And it's so hard to really shift those mental models. And there's also a question of, even when we'd like to, let's say, operate from a different space or ways to do, or reimagine how to do business or how to do, let's say, anything that we can think of. Always that question of, is this going to produce? You mentioned about productivity. Is this going to produce the expectations that the world needs from us? So there is still that, you know, if I could name it or label it as fear of being accepted, if we want to be different, or if we want to introduce something else that we can actually start working on, we are sort of in that space of stepping into the new, but also being drawn back to the old way. So it's really a constant struggle between my new self and the old self that I actually grew up with, or the mental models that we cannot shift yet. So it's really also a struggle between my own way of thinking about myself. So and I think that's one thing that we can start with, especially when we want to develop that new ways of relating to people and becoming more human with everyone. So it starts with how am I also looking at myself in all of these things that we're facing. So I think that's what I am experiencing currently with most of the people that I'm working with, especially in the business or in the government. It's actually starting with, who am I in this situation now? Who am I as a leader? And the old ways of dealing with the problems are, it's no longer working if we're gonna we'll be stuck in that kind of way of thinking.
So I'd like to come in here, and we've heard three very, very interesting perspectives here. Justina, just more in terms of the amount of change and whether the fact that we know about the change, but knowing is not enough, we have to do. Robyn literally, talking about the fact that, she says, we've got this premise that we want to maintain our competitive advantage. And it's almost like we've got this dichotomy where in order to maintain your competitive advantage, I cannot be human anymore. Yeah. That issue. And Chenny, you're literally highlighting the fact that, in leading in a time like this, it's no longer about, or it's about, okay, who am I? Who am I truly? And it's not a case of, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde story where I'm like this in this scenario and I'm that in that story. It's bringing back to who am I authentically? Yeah. And in terms of, and actually the question that you're posing is, can I truly be myself? Be it in a social setting, be it in a business setting, or any other setting, but can I truly be myself? And I'd like to maybe then just use it as a way of bouncing back to our panelists, around the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's such a powerful polarity that you're articulating, Sanjay. And the thing with our complex world, and our world has always been complex, but the level of complexity that we as a species and we as individuals are engaging with is most certainly escalating all the time. Partly our own fault because we create things that make that complexity escalate. But, becoming comfortable with this enormous sense of polarity around what do I do and how do I be? Who am I and what do I need to achieve? What am I as an individual and what are we as a collective? It's a really tricky thing for us to navigate, and yet it's the crux. So thinking about how do we navigate the differentiation between productivity and outcome and all of the, needing to get stuff done, because it's there, it's real, it is there. You have a family, you need to feed them. And contemplative practice, being self-aware, being insightful as to what is happening in the dynamic between individuals and relationships, that requires a very deep level of intentionality. And I think you may have seen, this model before, Sanjay. I may have shared it with you, but so how does one navigate this tremendously, what often feels very polarized world? It's to recognize that actually that polarity can be reframed as a creative tension. And in order to balance what we need to do is we need to really become very clear about our intent. So the intent into which one enters into an environment, a relationship, a collective, a piece of work that you are doing, is actually this fulcrum upon which you are able to balance these two and often multiple. I mean, if you really start to think about it, it actually is this multi-dimensional set of polarities. And so the work really is initially as an individual, but increasingly because we are human and we are we really, really require each other's presence in our lives to mirror ourselves back to ourselves collectively, to become clear about our intent as we enter into whatever it is that we are doing. So that is the work. And it's foundationally different because it requires us to really slow down, breathe, make time. And many of us have got, many people have a little, at least, of that for their individual selves. But what's being required now is to create that collectively. And that's a new set of skills. Or it's an ancient set of skills that needs to be rediscovered. Perhaps that's a better way of articulating it.
I would like to add that I totally agree with you, Robyn, but I think it's such a challenge for us as a humanity because we still live, the majority of our lives unconsciously, and it's so difficult to see. And I totally agree with you. But when I work, for instance, with governmental institutions or businesses here in Lithuania, I still feel that we are not conscious about all these new skills. I agree that we started talking about this creativity mindset, that we need to juggle a lot of different things, but we are not still aware that we need to come back to ourselves. And I really agree with you that we need to slow down, we need to think about these things, but I think we still need to learn how to do it because it's not so easy. Maybe it might sound very easy, but actually it's such a complex and difficult thing to do. When you feel all these pressures externally, you really need to slow down and think about yourself, about your way of living. And maybe I can see that you are very, into this topic. Maybe you could share with our audience how to do it. Because, for instance, even for myself, I really plan that I need to do these things, step by step, not everything at once. But, when all this life is happening, when it comes, I really struggle even myself to organize these thoughts. And so, from where to start, maybe? From where to start? What to do? I would be really interested.
I also will add to Justina because I have kind of the same, sense that in this environment we are living in, we're not living on our own. We're not living somewhere deep in the forest. And what Robyn outlined there is this, community path, where I think we can basically, gain kind of or slow down if the whole community around will follow and do that. But here is probably also very, very difficult, even much more difficult exercise to do, to encourage, I don't know, let's think about corporate, a department with 80 people, and it has really to be a leader there who would kind of, and it's not about encouraging, it's also probably you won't do this with a candy, as they say, in your hand. You have to control here to and really train people and yeah, basically to achieve, I don't know how many years have to pass, but I guess it will take time. But Robyn, if you have a recipe for that, please share with us.
I don't have a recipe, but I have some experiments that we are busy with that are wonderful. But I would love to just check, Chenny, if you also had anything you wanted to share quickly.
Yeah. You mentioned something about the how that can be actually realized from individual standpoint and leading towards a collective energy or collective effort that we can do, and I believe that one way of doing it is actually of course, like I am an individual, I can be a leader, I can develop it myself, but also being able to impart this in a bigger system. For example, my teammates or my colleagues in a corporation or a company, or maybe in an organization. But sometimes even that is a struggle, because it seems like emotions have no place in a very very professional setting, right? But in the middle of it all, because we are humans, we encounter emotions day in, day out. Whenever we do activities, whenever we want to create results for our team or for our organization, and it's almost like a topic that no one wants to discuss whenever we are in those kinds of setup, like if it's a company or let's say a government institution. But what I'm realizing, that's actually what's underrated right now. It's really talking about how you feel, and it brings us to a different level of being connected with each other if we were able to bring that out in our relationships when it comes to dealing with our colleagues, or dealing with our teammates, and yeah, I think that's something that we haven't really explored yet, or maybe we know but we don't want to be bold about it at this point, because sometimes there's this voice that would tell us, oh, that's not the right thing to discuss, because we are in a professional setting at the moment. So I think that's something that's really underrated at this point, but we all need that. We all need to talk about it, because that's what's happening. That's what's present in all of us right now.
Yeah,
I'd like
so
to, Robyn, perhaps before you respond, I'd like to add something to what Chenny just said. And Meryl just posted me a question here, and I think it builds nicely onto what Chenny was saying. She says, that the former head of Google leadership coaching, David Peterson, said famously, if we optimize for our present, we are sub-optimizing for our desired future state. What does this observation mean in this dialogue about transformation that includes being and doing? And I think it's a brilliant question, just to add on to what Chenny's comment. Robyn, love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, what a gorgeous question. Thank you, Meryl. Yeah, so a couple of things. So firstly, Sanjay, I'm just going to ask you to kick me under the table if needs be, just now. Okay, so kick me under the table if needs be. So a couple of things. The one is, I think we would be blown away if we started to look for and recognize how many spaces this kind of transformative way of being together is being practiced. And my experience, my experience coming into this, thinking about how do we do this, because we know we need to, but it feels so rare. Coming into the space sort of 3 years ago and really deciding to experiment and try. And, this experience of coming across entity after entity after initiative after model after program that is actually doing this kind of work, and witnessing over those 3 years. I remember when I made this career transition, my statement to the workplace that I was leaving was, I can feel there is a transformative systems paradigm underway. Something, the energy in this system wants to move. I want to move and understand how it moves because I want to catch that wave. I don't want to be left behind. And in this 3 years, this experience of seeing how this wave of strong desire and practice for being together, let me put it that way, for being together is emerging. So across the spectrum, you know, I think both Justina and Chenny, you're familiar with ULab and the Presencing Institute, but Warm Data Lab, people need people. Time to think, these are all initiatives that actually have been around for decades, but their time has come. So not only are they being practiced in isolation now, there is this increasing level of cross connectivity, of this rising shift in the way that we practice being together. And I had a conversation last week with a remarkable, she actually coached me many years ago, long story, but I had a conversation with her, and she was telling me about work that she is doing in one of South Africa's largest banking institutions. We were talking about this capacity to hold space for connection and how craved it is. It's craved when you invite people into this kind of space and you host the space for connection. The recognition is instant. It is exquisite. People walk away saying like that feeling of belonging, of being seen, of being welcomed into a space where my full intelligence is welcomed, not just this, my embodied intelligence, my emotional intelligence, my intuition, my sense of cultural intelligence, where that is welcomed. I recognize it, I love it, I want it, and yet we snap back into, ooh, it's a bit scary to go there. And so just to finish the story about my friend, she was saying that they have been running a program in one of the biggest banking institutions, which started at the beginning of COVID. And it literally is a space for people to connect. Every single member of the bank participates in their space. It's consistent. It's reliable. It's continuous. And the difference that it has made to the sense of well-being for those employees blows your mind. And, you know, again, it's this bizarre. So do we facilitate relationship and spaces for connections so that we can become more productive or more competitive? There's something about the intent there that instantly damages that hosting of the space. But I guarantee you, and from what I have been experiencing in our experiments with this, if you consistently, reliably, coherently, continuously hold the space for connection for the sake of relationship, your productivity will shoot through the roof. But you're not holding it for the productivity. You're holding it for the sake of the relationships. And this is like a little bit of mental gymnastics that goes on here. But what it comes down to is, what is my intention for holding this space? Because we read intention like a dog can smell, you know.
Robyn, can I just build on to what you're saying now with something I've experienced, if you don't mind me just chipping in there for a second. So, you know, you're talking about holding spaces for relationships, and I'm just hearing for connection. And something I've been just deliberately doing over the last 3 months is just, you know, we all get onto these video calls, like the one that we're on, and it's generally video off. And I started instituting this rule that says, guys, for the first 5 minutes, everybody's video's on. And, you know, that small little change had a massive change on every conversation, you know, because all of a sudden you've seen the person, the guy's like, you know, my makeup and my hair. And I'm like, guys, I don't care what you look like. You can be in your jammies. Just show up. Just let me see you. You know, so that was the one thing that's made a huge difference, is that we get so used to seeing this circle with 2 letters in it, or somebody's picture, but, you know, just seeing the eye movement, the facial movement, huge difference. The second thing was just talking about building spaces for relationship and connection. It was just we started a bit of an experiment as well, just in some of the corporate spaces where we said, guys, once a week, just set up some time where you meet for a glass of whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. And they asked me and said, what's the topic of conversation? I said, whatever you want to talk about, just 30 minutes. Just talk about whatever. Just connect with one another, meet in person, physical location, and just chat. If it's 2 of you, 3 of you, 5, you just meet and chat for 30 minutes. And I can tell you the difference it's made to people's mental well-being is phenomenal, because we crave that as humans. Connecting over a screen is one thing, but being physically across somebody, the entire body language, just being present, just engaging, it has a huge impact on that overall person's well-being as a whole. So yeah, I can completely relate to what you're saying. The question is, and I think this is something for everybody, is just as things become more brittle, more anxious, more non-linear, more all of this, the BANI type issues, how much are we becoming more deliberate about actually being human, and that which makes us human? So just a thought. Yeah, back to you guys.
And please let me also add, because we did some research, and actually, Robyn, when I hear when you say people need people, yes, like totally agree here. But when you talk to corporates or to mid managers, CIOs, they all struggle to get those employees, team members to the offices. I mean, they becoming very creative, doing many things, activities. I don't know, free food, coffee, whatever things in the office. Trips, spending time together. But what they say, people don't want. People don't want to be together. They want, to stay at home, do their job, 5 p.m., close the computer. And I guess that's, because of these pandemic years, people starting probably appreciate more families being at home with their, close ones. And, but at the same time, what I hear, probably there is the possibility, if you don't do these things aggressively, and you do, step by step, as Sanjay said, 30 minutes, just let's talk, just 30 minutes, not a day in the office. But it's difficult. And maybe there is, another way, maybe, I mean, the leaders shouldn't, to kind of encourage people to come back to the offices, like really to leave it, freely. You wanna, stay at home, stay at home. I don't know. I don't know what is the right answer. I just hear so many struggles there. And afterwards, what happens? All these leaders basically get burnout. So that's another topic.
It's not another topic. It's the same topic. Why? So people do want to connect. People do want to connect. People are desperate to connect. They want to connect with people who care about them. And going back to the intent. So what is the intent of trying to get people back into the office and offering them free coffee, free food, trips, perks? What is the intent? Stop. Because we know, we know when you want us to come back to the office, and how we feel when we get to the office. We've discovered we don't want to feel like that anymore. And so if you're inviting me to come back to the office and connect because of all the stuff we have to produce together, okay, I get it. But you're not speaking to my heart. You do not, I'm not feeling when I walk into that space. My heart doesn't light up. So becoming intentional about creating communities of care. When I walk into the office and I can feel my smile starting as I go in because I can't wait for that community that I find there. So you know, go back to the intent of getting people back into their office. And if you cannot name an intent which is about, I really want this place to be a space that people feel loved, that they are not being controlled to come in, they are being invited to come in. And when they are invited to come in, what they find there is addictive because it speaks to their sense of real belonging. And real belonging isn't facilitated by a t-shirt that has your logo on it, or by a mug on your desk that has your thing, or by a values board on the thing that says these are all the things we are. But actually, there's never time to discuss those things, and I don't feel them when I'm in your space. And what's happened with COVID is, I mean, there has been a complete reframing of what we are willing to give up about our humanity in order to be productive. And what needs to follow that is our institutions need to think about, as Meryl, you're going back to your point. So if we are trying to optimize for our current reality, and our reality is shifting under our feet, we are going to sell ourselves so short on what could be for our future. If we just, you know, say, well, AI is here, well, let's think about how do we want to be as human beings? Let's not abdicate responsibility and say, well, it's going to happen.
Thank you, Robyn, Justina, Chenny.
Yeah. You know, I totally agree with Robyn, and maybe I can also just add on to something how I experience it working with you know, professionals or business owners and working individuals here in the Philippines. And we have this saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So it's so hard for example, a leader in an organization, or let's say a team, to just always promote or be a cheerleader on what the goal should be for the entire team. And yet the leader or the manager for that example is not so, he or she is not showing the very fundamental element in a relationship, so that we are able to, you know, co-create or produce a result for the entire team. And that's really just coming from that space of caring. And when we say care, it's not just caring about how to create the results, but also going a little bit more, or going extra mile in checking the space of each and every one in the team. And that may be also asking, how are you doing today? And if there's a little bit of change in the appearance or spirit or energy of that person, maybe there's a personal side of that individual that needs to be addressed, so that, you know, we know how to support an individual for that matter. So I think that's how we want to see teams to be working, you know, especially now that coming from the challenge of the pandemic, a lot of what the pandemic has done to us, you know, change how we look at things, how we do business, how we run teams, how we take care of the being while this person is working in my team. So I think that has to also be part of how we take care or manage our team, and that's one thing that not everyone else has been, you know, been able to do that, but I think it's something that we can explore whenever we are talking about how to engage our colleagues to be more to see more of what we do as an organization, as a team, and at the same time not leaving behind the personal aspect of that individual. And I think that's we cannot separate the personal and the professional side of a being. right? Because it's highly, or it's mainly integrated, or life is integrated that way. We cannot separate the two. And so the role of a leader or a manager in a business setting can go beyond managing by objectives alone, but I think it's putting the person also in the center of everything. Like, how do we support this person's being, and also how this person can actually be brought to in alignment to what the organization wants to achieve as a business or as an organization. So I think that's how I see it moving forward.
I also wanted to add, I totally agree with both of my colleagues here, and I think that we really don't want to come back because we lack of meaning. But another thing which I wanted to add, actually, it's like when we talk about caring, so it means that if we care about another person, so we became curious about them. And curiosity is very interlinked with innovation as well. So basically, if we start caring about other people personally, professionally, it means it creates this curiosity, it creates this creativity mindset with which Robyn were talking a little bit earlier. And I think it's the essence of everything, because it seems so that we are all simple things, but if someone cares about myself, I will go there. I want to meet these people because I feel welcomed. I feel like that I am alive finally. Yeah? And then we all feel like this in this community. Is it the professional or is it personal community? We can create together as well, this future world or something else. So basically, I think that everything interlinks, like having meaning, then caring about each other, and from there it comes this curiosity where we can create everything what we want. So, yeah.
Wonderful. So, carry on, Sanjay.
So, colleagues, we've got literally about 6 minutes left of our conversation for today. So I want to maybe just reflect on a few things I've heard from everybody. And I'm just going to go back to some notes I've made. And I hope you don't mind if I go in reverse order from the last set of notes and maybe work my way back, right? So just building on to what Justina said, I think what I hear from you, Justina, is just, what are the ways we could navigate the current realities? Let's call them the BANI realities. It's all, BANI literally talks back to our own perception of the world. It's literally, it's not about the organization or anything else. It comes back to you, me, I, and my perceptions of the world, because BANI talks about our illusions of the world, right? So step one in addressing this illusionary world, and just based on what Justina said, was caring about others creates a sense of curiosity. And it's that curiosity mindset that draws people in. So I think that's a really amazing point to begin with. That says, if you want to build in a BANI world, let's break the illusion that we do not care. Let's create the reality that we do care. And as we start caring more, we draw people into us, because there's it's the curiosity factor. It says people are coming to me because I truly care about them, but it's about authentic caring, as opposed to just lip service. Hey, how you doing? And the person says, I'll use this practical example. We're all having these conversations, and pardon me, I'm a guy, so I'm going to talk about cars. So you're having this really intense conversation with somebody, and a yellow Ferrari goes past you. What happens to the person on the other side? Do they keep on focusing on you, or are they thinking about the yellow Ferrari? And that's what happens to us when you talk about caring. It's just true, authentic caring. The person won't notice the other yellow Ferrari. And I think that's the first part. The second thing is that, and this goes back to Chenny, she says, we can't separate the personal from the professional way of being. This Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story that we've got around the world, and these alter egos or personas that we create. I'm like this when I'm in the office. I'm like this when I'm speaking to clients, and I'm like this when I'm socially. Literally, there's one person. Who are you? Who truly are you? And how do we bring you to the table? How do we bring that authentic you to the table? Then, going back to Robyn, what is the intent of getting people back to the office? And I mean, literally, a lot of what Robyn talks about is your intent. And I like to use the word purpose. Yeah, it's just so why are you here? What is your intention? Why do you actually want to do this? If you want to do something, if you want to pull people around a room, around a table, you want to meet with people, you want something delivered, what is your intent? And your intent then tends to drive everything around how you potentially manage, lead, or work in that situation, or you are in that situation. It's quite a powerful, thought pattern there. It's just, I'm actually going to put it up on a little notice board that just reminds me whenever I go into a place, what is my intent? I think very, very powerful term there. Some of the other notes I've captured here, and like I said, going back is, we need to facilitate spaces for relationships and connections. As the world becomes more, these illusions become more and more, and we become a lot more anxious because we can't trust the information sets, etc., etc. Seeing somebody face to face, those relationships and that connectivity becomes even more important. Because do I trust the information or do I trust the person? Very, very, important going forward. And then, just to close off, I just want to maybe this little thought. There is no answer or one answer for how you deal with a world of illusion, and BANI is a nice little acronym to bring it together. It's all a series of experiments. It's all a series of trying something, seeing how it works. And if it works, you amplify it and you say, okay, well, can I continue doing more and more of this? And then what happens? And if it doesn't work, well, what else can I try? And that for me is probably the crux of today's conversation, colleagues. I'd like to just, the remaining time, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes before I do a final close. I'd like to maybe go around the room. I'll start off with Irma, then Justina, then Chenny, then Robyn, and then I'll close off. Everybody, just a minute, maybe a parting comment and a thought from me. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely phenomenal. I think we've got some true pearls of wisdom today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Also have so many, thoughts after this hour with wonderful ladies and our panelists. Thank you so much for coming on Saturday. I know it's weekend. We don't want burnouts, but we're having a nice time here, right? So what I've heard is I really enjoyed, I think Chenny was saying that, and I've came with a statement about professional and personal thriving, and I guess we need for sure start not separate these words anymore. That also this, personal perspective and personal awareness is very important. But at the same time, it's very important, to encourage not individuals, encourage communities, and basically, start building ecosystems based on these all the things you've said. Also, I guess if we want effectively navigate in this BANI world, yes, we need, to embrace change. We need to foster our learning mindset, be resilient. Agility is very important. Complexity is very important, and embracing all these things. But I guess here is the most important thing is to, and we all talked and agreed that, to emphasize empathy and emotional intelligence of either you are a leader or you are, employee, team member is very important. And another thing which really triggered me, Robyn, was you saying that the intent is very important, but also you need to ask and invite people, and then everything will be all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. For me, this conversation was really interesting, and so many thoughts came into my head. And I think I will keep thinking about this conversation all weekend. But one thing which is in particular very important for me after this conversation, I think that we should be more like a blank sheet of paper when we meet with a person. We shouldn't have like all these expectations or things which we want from them. We really need to be open, curious, blank sheet of paper, and then we start this conversation. We need to write, just then some thoughts and ideas and what exactly we can achieve with this person together. So I think it's about openness a lot. So thank you so much for inviting me. It was really enjoyable conversation.
I am grateful for being here today with all of you, and I think what binds us now is because of how we are sensing our environment, what's been happening around us, and it actually calls for the leader inside all of us to do more and to develop ourselves, to reach out to more individuals who would need all of us, like our relationships, and how we can actually turn those relationships into something that will always be good for everyone. So thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to more conversations with you in the future.
Thank you, Chenny. So what a beautiful conversation. And I love, Sanjay, just your comment there about innovation process. So if I may, I see I can share screen. I'd love to just share, again, going back to right at the beginning, this BANI concept.
Go for it.
So, really, I think that having come through, and I think everybody in this room is so familiar with sort of the innovation process, but having come through a VUCA space, for me, I really regard VUCA as being the, divergent part of the process, and that where we experienced VUCA from the current paradigm of how we, there we go, how, from this current set 18th century paradigm of control, was we experienced it as the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous space. All opening up, too much, overwhelming. Where we were able to step into that experience from the humanized space, from the connected space, from the belonging space, we could reframe that VUCA world in terms of the vision, understanding from our context, Ubuntu. I am because we are. And so that gives me the ability to engage with this current paradigm, increasing clarity and agility. So that's the outward phase. Recently, within the last post-COVID almost period, or towards the end, when we stepped into this convergent phase of our collective human experience, and we started to experience this BANI space, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible. When we stand in the current world paradigm of how do we control and manage this unbearably complex, rapidly evolving environment from the standpoint of this very linear thinking, this is how we experience our current paradigm. When we change our underlying intent and mindset and paradigm, and we really go right beneath what is happening, and we start to look at it through different eyes, and we look at it through the eyes of relationality, community of care, connection, being able to collectively think together and belong together, then we can actually experience it's the same experience, but we experience it from the perspective of feeling bonded, anchored, nurturing, and we are able to develop insight and innovate. Same set of experiences, different paradigmatic reference. And the second paradigmatic reference leads us into the future we want. Going back to Meryl's comment, in my opinion. Yeah, so there we go.
Thank you, Robyn.
Yeah, Robyn, I'm now thinking, how am I going to conclude after that? But anyway, that's the great thing about these conversations. We have some phenomenal people around the world, and I'll speak for both Irma and I. We are truly, truly grateful to have Justina, Robyn, and Chenny with us today. People who own their own space, they hold their space, and they've got some very, very clear thoughts of thinking, being, and doing around these spaces. And it's really, phenomenal to have all three of you in the room and literally talk about that. And I hope that our audience has also got some really, really, great nuggets from today to begin applying. What I'd like to do is just end off with, hold on, let me bring up my slides. Actually, before I do, I'd like to just take hold on, before I do that, can I ask everybody to turn video on for a second? I'd just like to take a picture or a photograph of everybody on the call today. Yes, please, if I may.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Yes, okay. Pauline, do you want to turn on your camera? And then 072-83201, if you want to turn on yours as well.
Sanjay, I'm battling the flu in bed,
Okay.
so can I please ask not to turn on?
Okay, that's cool, Pauline. I'm glad you could make it. I will get a picture of everybody in any case. Just, okay, hold on. And I'm going to, before I conclude, me and technology. Oh, Praveen, it's you. Welcome. I'm glad you could join us. Okay, colleagues. And 3, 2, 1. There we go. Great. So, thank you. I've got a lovely picture of everybody. And thank you for that. Yes, it's come out. Let me save it. Okay, so while we're doing that, I want to quickly just share my screen and just chat to you a little bit more about evolutionary conversations. So thank you firstly for joining us. The question is from here on, where do we go? And just to tell you about what we're doing with evolutionary conversations. So today was conversation number 3 that Irma and I hosted. And conversation number 4 will be in June. We have all of your contact details. We'll notify you of the date. We're just busy shifting a few things around from a schedule perspective. But there will be a date in June, and we're going to shake things up again in June. And we're going to try something a little bit more different in June. In terms of where to from here and how do you contact us, literally our contact details are there, my email, Irma's email. And if you really like us and you enjoy these conversations and you'd like to see this conversation, which we will record, we have recorded and we'll put onto a YouTube channel we've created. So if you go to YouTube and you search for Evolutionary Conversations, you will find us. Alternatively, you can just pick up that bit.ly link and you will find the video there as well. The video will be loaded by probably about 7 p.m. tonight. So the video will be on there as well. And literally that's, all about evolutionary conversations. Thank you so much for joining us today. We trust that you've had a good session. You've learned lots. You've been given opportunity to also reflect lots. The goal behind these conversations is to shift our ways of thinking, being, and doing. And we hope that we've contributed to you and what you do in some way in thinking, being, and doing. I'd like to end with that. Irma, any final comments?
Thank you again so much for wonderful ladies. Please join us on our next June record and discussion. And Sanjay, thank you so much.
Cool, guys. If you want to, I've just pasted the links and the contact details again in the chat. You can download that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Take care. Have a wonderful Saturday. And we're looking forward to seeing you at our next conversations. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.